September 1st, 2023. This is the S&P 500 2000 E-Features Mini 2000 tick chart on the NinjaTrader 8 platform. You can look at the descriptions below to see where I saw setups, which are all these marked ones, as well as where I took my trades, which is this boxed one. There was two pieces of economic data that came out today, one at 5:30 Pacific Standard Time, which is about right here. It was the non-farm payroll employment rate, and then again at 7 a.m. right around here, Pacific Standard, which is the ISM Manufacturing PMI. Overall price action looked like it stayed within this gigantic range, which is formed by the pre-market high and the pre-market low. And it did break out toward the end of the day, but it came right back in. But overall, you could say it was kind of mixed trading. There was some swings, and then there was some consolidation areas. I'm going to go through the trades right now. I saw a couple of pre-market trades, but I don't trade the pre-market. But there's something I just noted, and I just wanted to mark it for myself. It's the pre-market low. Prices were kind of doing a very, very gradual grind up, and I actually saw this setup. Of course, this is after the fact. So I saw a new high here. It's a double top. See a first entry long. Let me zoom in. The first entry long breaks one tick higher, comes back down, and it creates a second entry long. This is a pretty good signal bar. If this formed in real time, I think this is a trade I would consider taking, because the first break of this green channel coming up, and it kind of broke below the EMA, but is coming right back up. So I was thinking after this break, it should see an attempt to test the high, and that's exactly what happened. Then there was a second setup that also happened in the pre-market. Again, I couldn't take it because I wasn't around, but if it formed in regular trading hours, this type of setup, I think is something I would have taken. So clearly we have a confirmed high of the pre-market, or if this is in regular trading hours, just be confirmed high. Well, not a confirmed high, but some kind of resistance that you see here for sure. I saw a new high here. It's a first entry long, pulls back, breaks above, and creates a second entry long. I like this trade also because it's a failed second entry short. Clearly, here's the new low after this break, creates one push down, pulls up, and it creates a second push down, then it fails. So it's a failed second entry short and a second entry long. On top of that, even though the EMA is flattening, it didn't really make a successful attempt to hit the high. So it's after this break of this green channel up, it made one push up, came back down, and it looks like it could potentially make a second push up because you see this right now. And it is kind of falling into a range. But this setup looks pretty clean, pretty good. First entry short, second entry short, fails the second entry short, and you have a new high here, first entry long. You don't have a second entry long until it confirms on this next candle. That would have been a pretty good trade. Prices continue, goes into trading range, and then finally breaks out into the open. Prices are actually trading now, or not price. This is actually where most of the traders start coming in. There's a new high here. The first entry long pulls back. Here I'm watching. I'm wondering if there's a second entry long. I'm always watching, seeing if there's a second entry of some kind. So you do get a second entry long here, but this is a signal bar is kind of neutral, and it didn't really make its way all the way back down to the bottom of this range. And it's also, since it's the first 2 minutes of the trading day, I didn't really think this setup just wasn't convincing enough for me to quickly want to jump on it. And it actually kind of maybe set up here and you made a new high, made a first entry long, and then actually came down and bounced off the bottom of this, and the signal bar was ready to come back up, then I think I would have been more willing to take the trade, even if it was so early in the day. It's only 2 minutes since the market opened. Prices then continue chopping. It's in this trading range and it breaks out. It falls into this channel coming down. I don't see any good setups that I like. It comes up, bounces. I'm seeing some kind of resistance up here. I don't believe it's a trading range yet. Comes back down, it bounces off. So now I actually think there is a potential trading range for the top here and the bottom here. So I drew this line down here, this blue line, as a potential support. I see a failed second entry long, so it's a new high here. So first entry long pulls back, second entry long. Now technically this second entry long hasn't failed yet, but it looks very close to failing. So if this actually closed a little higher, then I think I would have considered maybe getting a trade ready. But this signal bar, I think, is going to be Right here, this is the signal bar here for the second entry long. It's not a good bar to go long, and it also didn't reject off the EMA. So it's running into the low of this potential support. So that's all this is kind of telling me like, hey, maybe this isn't a clear trade. Like ideally, the signal bar candle of this guy here wouldn't have this very long tail. Then I cut like the tail or wick was a little bit lower, then you have a clear failure. Then you would consider taking the trade, but also you're running into the potential support. Turns out it would have worked out, but again, in real time, it's hard to really know all that for sure. I draw this trend resistance up here, and I put a potential bottom support here. So I'm working what I think is a trend channel, this green one here. It looks like it's respecting the top, comes down. I actually see this as a new low, first entry short, create a second entry short. Now this second entry short, it's this failure set up below the EMA. EMA is flattening out, but for the most part, it is respecting prices are respecting the EMA. So if you have a failed second entry short, well, you have a second entry short here, it's not a good signal bar. And here I saw a failed second entry short. So this higher low is going to show up later, but I saw this new low, first entry short, second entry short. This is a terrible signal bar to go short. Then when it flashed here and it created a failure, it's giving me pause because prices are respecting the EMA. So it's telling me this downward trend could still be a lot stronger than trying to see a reversal because you see one leg up, pull back. Potentially this is a second leg up here and it's already completed. So definitely don't want to go short and definitely feels too early to go long. So I thought, okay, seeing all this, maybe I should just sit here and wait to see if there's some kind of confirmation. You get a higher low here. So you get first inch short, second inch short failure on this candle, and you also get a higher low here. Now, this is actually confirming the setup. It's a pretty strong bullish bar and it closed. And I think what I would have done is put my entry one tick below, not one tick below, one tick above this original signal bar. And just to be a little bit more safer, hoping the next bar would have come back and picked me up. I didn't take the trade though, and it looks like it would have picked me up. Looks like it's just enough. It would have picked me up and it flashed up, and then likely would have gotten my quick scalp. Prices continue moving up. Right around here, this is where the ISM Manufacturing PMI is being released, 7 a.m. And so right here, there's kind of this crazy reaction. I don't want to be a part of this just because yes, you could make a quick profit, but you could also make a quick loss. I did see that this is potentially the top of a trading range now from here. And originally I thought the trading range was here, but it broke out and I thought maybe the trading range is below down here. I was keeping this guy in mind, but I later shortened him down. The prices moved down. You have a new high, first entry long, but this is still within the first minute of that news coming out. And I just didn't want to risk anything like that. I see a new low here. It's a first entry short, second entry short failure. Now the second entry short failure, it looks pretty nice, right? Except the problem is the second entry short, which would have been off this signal bar, it fails, it traps a bunch of shorts, and it bounced off the EMA. I mean, it's pretty close, and you could pretty much say it bounced off the EMA. What I wasn't too keen on is it kind of flashed up and it's pushing against this resistance of this trading range. So you don't know what the next candle is going to do, but it looked like it lost power. It picked up and it was forced to close at the very end of this candle's life, right at this support, or right at this resistance. That gives me pause. If it flashed up higher, definitively closed above, and I think I would have been more intent on thinking there's a possible trade here, but it's not sure. So I just decided, well, this is a little risky, so I should just leave it alone. Looks like if you did take this trade, you, depending on where you enter, you would have gotten a fill, but I'm okay with that. Technically, you have a new high here, first entry long, second entry long. Signal bar would be this guy, the second entry long, but it looks a little congested. And I did draw this as a trend line, and then I drew this one up here as a trend channel. I'm just watching this right now, and the signal bar just, it's really nice. It would have been better if it just kind of came down, touched the EMA, give it a little more confirmation. It did close above this trading range. When you see this, you're not really sure if this is a failed breakout, one intent to come back up, and then comes back down, maybe touch the other side. So I wasn't sure, so I left it alone. Prices continue moving up, breaks out. This is actually where I get ready for my first trade. I saw a new high here, first entry long, pulls back. I see this candle and I'm thinking the price action here was the sellers try to push it down through the EMA, but they lost power. It's a good signal bar. It is right at the EMA, right under it though. But it's also the first break of this green channel. And it's the first break, and I see it as one attempt push up. It might make a second attempt now. When it flashed up, I actually didn't take it on the engulfing. I waited. I made sure that it actually ticked one above. And then when it ticked a second time above, then I dropped in my limit order one tick above, and I just waited. I wasn't sure I was going to get filled, but it came down, filled me, chopped around. I kept my stop one tick below here, and it flashed up and gave me my profit. So I wasn't sure there was a downtrend here yet, but I did see this as a break. First one attempt up, second attempt up, and I thought it might have played out. Prices might come back down, so I wasn't sure. Oh, I did also consider the potential moving measured leg one up here, pulls back second leg, but after seeing this, I kind of abandoned the idea that it might try to make this measured move at this point. So you do have a new low here, first entry short, second entry short. This is a this signal bar is just too doji-ish to consider. And I wasn't super confirmed, super sure that this trend line coming down is an adequate resistance. I need a little more price action, a little more confidence. It looks like it chops around. That's where I turned the trend line because I originally had it here, thinking, okay, well, maybe it's overshooting. After that, I didn't really like that it overshoots, so I actually put it right there. It jumped up, flashed up. It looks like it's operating within this channel now. Pretty clean. I saw a new low here. First entry short, pulls up. Second entry short. Now the second entry short, this is the signal bar. It's pretty tiny. I mean, if I was a little more aggressive, this might have been an adequate risk. But then when it flashed up, it looked like it was rejected by the EMA, but there wasn't enough room now to the bottom because until this candle closed, it's just chopping around, and as it's oscillating, you're not really sure if this is a true support or if it's not going to have anything to do with it. It might flash down. By the time it closes, the trade feels like it's already made. So I'm not going to chase it, even though it's second entry short right here. But leave it alone. Prices look like it's coming back in. I see a new low here. First entry short pulls up. Again, this is the same issue with that first trade. I also decided that maybe I want to drag it a little bit closer down here. So I saw this first entry short, second entry short. This is a good signal bar. The problem with this setup that I didn't like, even though it's a possible trade, it's a good signal bar. It closed below the EMA, so EMA is being respected. There's enough room to the bottom of the range, but it's also coming up from an overshoot because originally I had something like this. So I was like one push down, second push down. I was thinking it might want to push up again. It might be a psych out. It might push back to this side. So I wasn't sure. And it looked like, depending on how I saw it, if I had more experience, if only this had actually come up and touched this line, I would have felt more confident taking the short, but it fell short and it came back down, so I wasn't 100% sure. So as I said, at that point, I considered dragging this down here. Then I do see a failed second entry long. I see a new high here, first entry long, second entry long. It hasn't failed yet, but overall sentiment is coming down, and it looks like it's creating a little bit of support here, and there looks like a little bit of resistance up here. So I was wondering if there's a actual trading range operating here. So it flashes down. You have a failed second entry long now. The problem with this setup now is this failed second entry long is an EMA rejection, which is true, but this is kind of coming into the bottom of a support. So I thought this is potential support here. And at the time, I was still wondering if this is truly, it's just an overshoot coming up here. Later, I did drag it down. And I did kind of wonder if it was like hitting this support on top of this green channel support. So taking a failed second entry long, yes, it could flash up. Excuse me, taking a failed second entry long, thinking is a time to go short, it gave me pause because there's a support here and a potential support from this green channel down. So it looked like I'm fighting against two potential areas of support. And I just didn't like the odds of that, so I had to leave it alone. Prices moved down. And so when I was playing with this old channel and thinking that it might be another channel here, after I saw this flash down, I was seeing if there's anything that fit. Let me just go ahead and extend this out a little bit. Now prices are kind of going down. It looks like it's fitting more nicely in this yellow channel. So I'm just playing off of this yellow channel at the moment. I see this new low, first entry short, second entry short setting up. Here's the second entry short. This second entry short isn't very convincing because yes, Created a second entry short, but it looks like it potentially could fail now. Now, this signal bar for the second entry short isn't very good. Also, it's a rejection of the EMA, so it's telling you, okay, potentially you can go down lower. You kind of made a recent low here, so I just had to wait, and I thought, okay, I'm not 100% sure, so I want to wait for a lower high confirmation. Get a lower high confirmation, but this lower high confirmation looks very, I guess, just flimsy, as I would say it, because it's second entry short. A lower high confirmation, it's rejecting off the EMA again, but the wick is so large, like where would I enter? Would I enter one tick below? That's running the risk of hitting the lows already. So it's like you're selling into the lows as opposed to buying at the lows and pushing it back up if you're kind of in this range, right? So I wasn't 100% sure. I wish this actually was a better candle, and maybe if this wick wasn't it wasn't this high, this would have been a more clean setup. So it was just a little confusing, a little congested. I decided to leave it alone. The prices look like it falls into this range. It gets kind of congested here. I see a second entry short here setting up. It's actually a new low, first entry short. This is second entry short. I actually thought this was a pretty decent setup right here. It's a good signal bar, which is this guy. It's very bearish. It is above the EMA, but the EMA is kind of flattening, so you don't give it too much. You do consider it, but it's not as important right now. And it was at the top of the range, which is right here, which I believe is the top of the range, and there's enough room to scalp out. But I didn't take this trade. Looked like it would have worked, and then it kind of pushes out of this trading range, and it falls into this channel coming down now. I don't see any good clean setup, unfortunately. Falls into this trading range. You have a new low, first entry short, second entry short. It's a good signal bar, but it feels a little congested. This range is also very tiny. There's only about a 2.5 point range. So to try to get a 1 point scalp out of a 2.5 point range feels very dicey. And then if prices continue moving up, I saw one leg up, consolidation, potential second leg up. I saw a failed second entry short. It's like a new low here, first entry short, pulls up, second entry short, fails right here. But this failure is kind of far from the EMA. It could also be seen as just one continuous leg up. So I thought, I'm not really sure. It's far from the EMA. It's the first break of this. And so it could want to test the high, which it did on this candle. So it feels like the trade has already been made. So I just didn't want to potentially take, one tick higher. There would be no point. Or even take one tick above the original signal bar because the trade has already been made on this candle. Then prices continue, starts pulling back, flashes up. It gets pretty noisy. And I don't see any good setups right now. I'm not sure what happened here, but this is a very big bar. I mean, in context of what's happened throughout the day. Prices then continue chopping. I did see like a potential first entry long, pullback, second entry long on the visual, but I didn't see any real key entry points, anything safe, in my opinion, for me to take. Prices then continue chopping. It falls into this channel, this trading range, excuse me, this downward channel. It broke out, and I chopped around. It gets a little ugly. I did see a failed second entry short here. It's a new low. First entry short, pulls up, second entry short. Second entry short, it rejects all the way up. So I saw this as this engulfing bar. It's a rejection off, you know, it, excuse me. I saw this as like a pretty strong trade because this candle trapped everybody to decide to go short before they watched this candle complete. Because you're watching this first entry short, second entry short, it's just jumping around. You didn't know that it was going to close up actually higher, make it higher than the previous signal bar. So it actually trapped, I think, a lot of sellers. And if I was to take this trade, I think I would have not put it one tick here. I probably would have put in a couple ticks lower, maybe closer to the EMA to try to reduce my risk. But as you can see, depending on how much I want to reduce my risk, I might not have even gotten filled. But you do get a lower high here. But by the time you have a confirmed lower high, close up here, it's moving back into the pre-market trading range. It feels a little bit late because you didn't enter here, and it feels like I'd be chasing a little bit right here. It did get close to the EMA. So if I did want to chase it on this higher low, I would again try to place it somewhere probably in the meat of this candle to reduce my risk. And it looks like you wouldn't have gotten filled. And by the time this candle, closes, you should abandon the trade because now it's too late. The prices continue moving up. Price action actually kind of slows down again, and then it just gets kind of noisy and chops to the end of the day. So as you can see, there was a lot of movement out here. And then you can see from about right here, to about right here. This is 3 hours of trading right here from 10 o'clock Pacific Standard to 1 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard. So that's 3 hours of trading. And you can see how many candles there are. Now, in comparison, you can see from the market open from 6:30 to 9:30, this is at 3 hours of trading. From here to about 9:30. So you can just do the comparison. You can tell like all the price action was way up here. This is 3 hours of trading on a 2000 tick chart. And this is the same 3 hours of trading later in the day on a 2000 tick chart. This is from 10 to 1 p.m. and 6:30 to 9:30. It's kind of crazy. So all the price action, all the setups you were right here, and then it got really dry and harder to trade back there. So overall, I got one trade. It was green. It's a good way to just end the week. Uh, price action, not price action, but the charts have just been pretty tricky this whole week and kind of slow. So ideally, things should be picking up as we move out of the summer month into the fall and into the winter. So hopefully that was helpful.